Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, your favorite Giants podcast. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and we are ready for our last episode before the actual draft. If you're watching this today, the draft is tomorrow.
Jesus.
And that it's just hitting the ground running with news. And by Sunday, we're all going to be pretty happy with something.
We're going to be happy with something. We're going to be pissed off about something else. So it'd be just a typical NFL draft. No one's ever happy. No one's ever pissed. The glass is half full. The glass is half empty. The Giants did a terrible job. They did a great job. We're going to the Super Bowl. We're firing everybody.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. That's my analysis.
Not a lot of news to break. This isn't news, but broke today that the Giants and Browns are fielding calls for trades. That's not news. They should be doing that.
And
those phone calls always come around this time.
And water's wet.
Yeah. So.
And in the rumor department, Grump, and we didn't prep for this. I'll just tell you. Did you see? I forget who it was. Was like, I have a crazy trade proposal that the Giants trade for Brock Purdy.
I did not see that.
What would your thought be on that? I mean, without really going into any specifics or any much of a thought, a quarterback who probably is a system quarterback and is about to be a massive free agent. Would you even entertain that thought?
Or? No, that made sense before the Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston thing. But it doesn't make sense anymore to me. No, because now you're only going to be paying him. You're essentially trading for him, and on his cheap deal, he's not doing shit because he's not going to play over Russell Wilson, who you just signed, and you're going to have to pay that money anyway. And then next year, you're going to have to pay him. What do you mean?
You think he'd be behind Russell Wilson on a depth chart?
I don't think Russell Wilson is sitting on the bench this year. I think that is a negotiated thing. End of story.
That'd be pretty ironic, that considering Russell Wilson was the draft pick, who usurped a free agent signing before. It'd be interesting how his career would come full circle by that. But I think, whatever handshake agreements are made between owners and agents, I think it's superseded by the conditions on the ground.
Yeah, but I don't think that's even an upgrade. He doesn't have the same deep ball that Russell Wilson has at all. No, I wouldn't do it. If Russell Wilson were not in the conversation and we were going back a full month from now, that makes sense because you're going to give him an opportunity to play for that contract or hit the open market. That's going to be entirely up to him, and you're the ones in the building, so you get last look at him to decide if you're going to extend him mid-year or if you're going to sign him at the end of the year or if you're just going to cut bait and walk. But now it would make no sense because you've already got... I think Russell Wilson is a more complete quarterback, even if he's older and lost gas.
Let's see. To me, Russell Wilson has no impact on it because this is a potential. I wouldn't do it. Just to answer the question, I would not do it. Period, because there's too much risk involved. There's too much risk of A, you got to sign him and you could walk. B, is he the guy worth the money that you're spending for? Russell Wilson to me is irrelevant in the conversation because.
But it's not because he's better this year.
I disagree.
I mean, you bringing Brock Purdy is inviting the exact same problem you had last year, in that there's no threat of a deep ball. So how does that improve anything?
He's a better quarterback overall. I mean, Russell Wilson.
No, you're just going to be checking shit down again.
Yeah, but I mean, they also had a bunch of injuries too, San Francisco.
I'm just saying, there's no threat of a. I don't know. I don't see the deep ball threat with Brock Purdy, period. And I'm the one. I said this like 2 months ago. Like, I'd entertain the idea of bringing him here and making that move. We had that debate about having him back then, but since adding Russell Wilson, he's just not better. I'm sorry. He's younger. That's cool.
I just wouldn't bring him in because again, I said there's 3 reasons why I'm against it, and they all are very valid ones. I just if you do get to sign him, just because he's here doesn't mean he may be like, I don't want to stay with the Giants. I want to go somewhere else. I don't like this organization. I don't want to play in the Northeast. I don't play in the wind. All this stuff, and all of a sudden, then you've made a deal. You pissed off Russell Wilson. You traded assets for no return if he walks, and also I think he's a guy, like I said, that I think he's a system guy too. I mean, you put him around McCaffrey. You put him around Deebo Samuel. You put him around really good players, a really good offensive line. He's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's all timing based over there, and that's fine because they have great playmakers. The Giants are slowly adding playmakers. You know what I mean? Like Malik, but we've already
Yeah.
seen what doing everything underneath does for this team. It
I'm
doesn't do
much more
enough.
willing. I'm much more willing to make that risk on a draft pick than I am
A
with
100% agree.
hundreds of millions of dollars potentially. I mean,
Well, there was
you know,
also the criticism of trading for Leonard Williams. It had nothing to do with the fact that Leonard Williams wasn't good or that he wouldn't improve the team. It was that, I mean, and again, that was mid-season, and that's fine. But I mean, is it really that much of a difference to do it just before the season, get one season, then you have to pay a guy?
right, right. So, all right. I mean, I think we're kind of in alignment with that. That
Yeah.
we think that's a bad idea.
Um, Switching over to the defense because that's what we want to talk about.
Defense.
Um, we're gonna rifle through. So the Giants have 4 picks in the top 105, and let's go around the position group room and we'll figure out if we would like to use a premium pick on one of those spots. And we'll start with edge on the defensive line. Giants have Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, obviously Dimukeji, and Tamon Fox. 2 guys easily that could be upgraded, though also not on the roster after this year. I would like to add an edge, but I also don't think it's 100% necessary.
That's where I'm leaning. To me, I mean, Giants in the past used to have strength by adding on to strength positions, but I think there's still, if you have the opportunity to get, a premium offensive lineman or a premium, linebacker or whoever with those, picks, I think there's more pressing needs and fortifying edge. So I'm gonna say I would not use a premium draft pick on an edge.
You would not.
I would not.
See, I would, but I don't think that it's necessary to walk away with one. Like it doesn't need to happen. Like what were we saying? Like with offensive tackle, I'm gonna be pretty pissed if they don't walk away with a tackle because it's a problem, and I'm not ready to sit through another season where Andrew Thomas sneezes wrong and the season's over.
We are getting to that later on in the episode.
Okay.
Okay.
Sliding inside to defensive tackle, and there's they went out and they got a number of free agents to kind of fill in a lot of gaps. There's definitely going to be a lot of competition, I think, in training camp with the group of guys they already brought in. Between Dexter Lawrence, Nunez Roches is still here for another season. Ledbetter, Robertson Harris, Davidson, Riley, Chapman, Durden, Rogers, Blacklock, all guys that they have in here in the room. I definitely think that they're going to be competing, but do they need to walk away from this draft with an interior defensive lineman?
My answer is yes.
Why?
That's a lot. That's a lot of bodies. I want greatness. I think if you have the opportunity where we're drafting to get greatness, I think you go for it. And my recurring theme on this show is I build a team from the closest I can to the ball out. This team has to get better stopping the run. Um, I would spend I know there's competition, but I want someone who's going to be a stud, a leader, a guy, and that's what I'm doing here.
So I'm curious why you think that they must walk away with a defensive tackle, but not an edge guy when there's at least more depth there. Where it's like they can definitely get through a season with the guys that they have.
They can get through a season, but I'm looking at more. I think when you're again, I'm kind of skewing this premium pick more towards round 1 and round 2 than I am 3 and 4. But to me, I'm looking beyond 2025. I'm looking, as a cornerstone guy on my defense to get. And if I have the opportunity to get, at 3, potentially the best defensive tackle in the draft, or, it's hard to pass up and build that cornerstone. So that's what I'm thinking. It may not make 100% sense for this year, but that's a type of pick that's looking future wise as much as today.
See, that's interesting because Kayvon Thibodeau is coming up on his 5th-year option, and it's already a question right there if you want to spend $15 million fully guaranteed for his 5th-year option based on what you've gotten from him so far, and then after that you'd have to pay him anyway. So I mean, that's looking beyond 2025 as well on the edge side. So for me, I'm going to agree with you, but not for those reasons at all. My reasons are there are plenty of good defensive tackles, and by good I mean like going to be impactful, that you don't need to like worry about spending the 3rd overall pick on or anything like that. Like there's a lot of talent clumped around the second and third round.
Yeah. Eh, Again, I think I'm splitting hairs a little bit. I mean, this defensive line in a whole needs to be upgraded, and I want to get a cornerstone guy in there if I can. But if you put a gun to my head, do I want an interior defensive tackle or an edge guy? I'm going to go defensive tackle almost
Okay.
every time.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I can
Yeah.
get you there. I also think just in general for me with the edge guys, there's like a huge drop off in talent just available. So like there's guys that I like in like the middle rounds or whatever, but I don't like them so much as like they must walk away with one of these guys. Like they're not that good. And we'll get into that more.
Oh well, yeah, and I'm going to nuance my answer with the guy has got to be a difference maker for me to say you got to get him. I don't want to like I'm not saying we got to draft a quarterback because we have to draft a quarterback, even though it might be someone that's you know a project at best. It's just well, we got our quarterback. We said we were going to. I feel the same way about that. If I'm going to go defensive tackle, with at 3, for example, or at 34 or whatever we have, I better be damn well expecting that guy to be a difference maker going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's like a definite like edge is so hard, right? Like I can understand the nuance of like people like Kayvon Thibodeau being a good player that because of where he's drafted, the production doesn't match what you'd want, and therefore people are like, don't get this guy as fifth year option. And it's like a legitimate conversation. Like, are you gonna pay $15 million for a guy who just simply doesn't get a lot of sacks on his own without like maybe he's a different guy
But
with another legitimate edge person to rotate in.
well, I was
I don't
I was
know.
also going to say too that I feel edge is much more impacted by the scheme you're running and the defensive coordinator you have and the players around him than a defensive tackle. A tackle,
Right, and I think that
I'm
for
stopping the run right in front of me, and if I can get a push to the quarterback, you're not doing as much exotic and different things that you could potentially do that you would on edge. So we yeah, there is a pretty legitimate chance that we're blowing out everybody after this offseason. We come in and we bring in someone with a completely different defense, different philosophy, everything, and it might be that's what unlocks Thibodeau, and then you got the guy.
well, I would say that most of Kayvon Thibodeau's production would be hindered by Wink Martindale's scheme that prioritized like
Mhm.
the edge guys making sure that there was contained and the pressure was coming from all over the place. Whereas
Right,
in Bowen's system, he's just pretty much rushing four, and if there's a fifth guy, it's a linebacker in the A gap or something like that.
right.
So there's a lot more edge guys doing edge things in Bowen's system, but he's only had 1 year where this team was just terrible in
Yeah,
that system to do
and
anything.
and,
So
and,
it's
tran
fair.
and transitioning and kind of adapting. I mean, it's I can count on this hand how many times you get a complete transition, and all of a sudden it clicks in year one. Boom.
Yeah. Let's switch over to off-ball linebacker. Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, Darius Muasau, um, Johnson. I want to say Dwayne Johnson, and that's definitely not right, but it
That'd be
begins with a
something.
D. I forget his first name. I feel bad because I
It's
like him
not
too.
Daryl Moose Johnson. It's not.
Yeah, and then a couple of special teamers in
uh,
Board and Flanagan Fowles. Do they need to walk away with one of these guys?
I think I would really like to. I don't know if I think need. I would absolutely would like to get one.
Yeah, I
Fabio
mean,
Carrique is Fabio Carrique is starting to, and I think we need to. I don't want a major drop off in that position. I want the heir apparent, the replacement to be there. But I don't think it's like we got to spend premium for it right now.
I agree. I would like one. It would be nice. I think that the position group needs to be upgraded, but I'm
Just
okay being like, how is Bobby Okereke in this system with a defensive line that can stop the run? I'm more interested in that than I am how do we replace Bobby Okereke. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Flipping over to corner, Paulson Adebo and Deontay Banks on the outside, and then a lot of young not talent between Cordell Flott. Drew Phillips.
Drew
Drew
Phillips.
Phillips. But Cordell Flott, Trey Hawkins, Johnson, Green, Jones. Not a lot of anything there.
I think for a premium position, I don't think I need to go. I need to go corner right now. I think we're. I think at you're talking about a lot of things. I feel like a lot of those type of guys we can get lower in the draft, or maybe we can pick up off this a free agent cut down type of guy. Now, if you're talking about we need a number one corner or even need a number two corner, that'd be a different story. But I
See,
think we're okay right now.
wow, I couldn't possibly disagree with you more because
Okay.
the last thing I want to do is draft a corner because I need a corner. To me, that's just bad draft process, and especially of all
No, no, no,
positions,
no, no,
that
no,
one.
no, no. You misunderstood what I said.
Okay,
I'm saying because we don't need to draft one, and we can pick one up non-premium to get a guy for our situation we need right now.
I see what you're saying.
We don't need to draft. I think we're fine with 1 and 2 right now. And I think when you said we have a lot of guys like that case, I feel I can pick one up up the cut down day
Yes,
or
I see. Like the
around
depth
25.
guys get your.
Exactly.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would agree with that. The only thing I'm going to say is I would like one more developmental body, and that's because Adebo is already on a huge contract. Um, we've we've seen enough of Banks where we can say we're not sure that he's going to pan out. He did statistically get better from year 1 to year 2. He got better. Even moving from 2 to 1. I think we're pretty sure he's not going to be a 1. If he can be a 2 is, I think, still completely up in the air.
Yeah, I'm looking at in the cranky ball right now, and I think if I had to put a gun to my head, I think he might be a decent number 2 guy. I don't think he'll ever be. I don't want him matched up against the best receivers in my division or the conference going forward. But I think, again, only a second year, still has it's a growth, it's an overtime progression position. I think he could be fine as a number 2. I'm
I'm going to
hoping.
agree with that, yeah.
Yeah.
But here's what I would like to add another guy, and with the premium spot. So I'm not talking about 3. Any one of these, and like I was on Giants Nation show, and I kind of gushed over Kentucky corner, Maxwell Hairston, because to me, I mean that system that Kentucky runs, they're so far off the ball that like the production is just not going to be there. But he has this insane. He's fast, like he's really really fast. He's really aggressive. I think he'll take a little time to develop, but he doesn't need to play right away. I think he can develop and get better. But just somebody, and I think that he'll probably end up moving into the slot, which I like Drew Phillips. I'm not saying replace Drew Phillips, but I do think that slot corners get hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I would use a premium pick there.
Okay.
But I don't think that it's totally necessary. I just would I would.
That's a would as opposed to have to.
Yeah, I don't agree. And then safety with Javon Holland, Tyler Nubin, Dane Belton, and Jalen Lane. Jalen Lane, I think.
We don't know his name.
Night Train Lane.
Is every guy named Lane have to be Night Train?
Yes.
Because I think there were 2 DJs in Tampa in my years living there called Night Train Lane. I think there was one up here. I think there was a porno guy named Night Train Lane. So funny.
That is there is a corner named Night Train, like a Hall of Fame corner.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure I wasn't confusing my porn stars with football players.
Oh, that let me make a note here.
So here's what I'm going to say. I think there is just as much need to get a safety as there is corner, and there's not a need to do both. So this is another one for me that's a would, not need to.
I guess I have a question for you. It really needs to be asked after the draft, but before the draft is. Well, let's put it this way. Up until this point, are you feeling comfortable of what they've done on defense? Via free agency, because your thing last year was, I'm not too concerned about the defense because they really invested a lot of capital in working on the offense, and now it's time to do the defense. So far, are you pleased enough with what they've done on defense that with a draft coming up, that's going to supplement it, and you're going to feel like we're in a much better place, or do you think they haven't addressed enough?
I think they've done enough that they don't need to use the draft to fill a hole. I don't know if that answers your question, but if you're using
100% does.
Yeah, if you're using the draft correctly, where like we're talking about the defensive line, like Nunez Roches is going to be gone after 2025. So is Ledbetter. So is DJ Davidson, and then and Durden and Rogers and Blacklock. All those guys are after this year, and then in 2026 you're losing Chapman, Riley. You know what I mean? The only one you've really got signed beyond that, and it's only until 2027, so it's only 2 years out, is Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're using the draft properly, you'd be getting a guy this year that doesn't necessarily need to play this year, but if you're using a premium pick, he's probably going to work in at some point, and he's your 1-2 punch with Dexter Lawrence in like 2026, right?
Which is kind of the rotation we had about 10 years ago too, by the way, with all these defensive tackles that eventually became free agents and gone to other places too. So you want to have that pipeline in effect.
100%. I mean, If you want to know why the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, it has nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. It actually doesn't even have that much to do with the offense. It doesn't really have that much to do with the tush push, in my opinion. We can look at stats. We can argue over whether or not the play is fair, or just having A.J. Brown as basically a fourth down cheat code. Just if he's on single coverage, just throw it at him. He'll win. They won because they have an incredibly good and fresh defense. And it's all up front, too. Nothing to do with C.J. Gardner. I know he's a Gator, but he's actually a piece of shit jerk off. I don't know. I think he's a jerk off. I don't know how you feel post Gators.
Grump, you ignorant slut.
You know I'm right. But yeah, that's how you do it. You get
sure
talent
100%.
up front, and you let them rotate so that they're rested. Dexter Lawrence can't be playing 95% of snaps anymore.
It was ridiculous, and you're absolutely right. And again, you need that rotation to keep your guys fresh now and to replace guys that are kind of contracting out going forward.
So let's talk a little bit about the actual draft itself. Let's talk about what we want to happen, what we don't want to happen, what we think is going to happen. And, obviously a lot of attention is going to be spent on the third overall pick. This is a take.
Okay.
I think the Giants have just as much impetus to take Travis Hunter to fix their team, not to just get a good player. But no, it's same difference. Just as much impetus to take Travis Hunter as they do Malachi Starks.
Okay.
The Giants have Deonte Banks and Paulson Adebo as your penciled-in starting corners. Does Travis Hunter beat one of them? Maybe. Probably. Are you looking down the future? That's totally fine. Again, using the draft wisely is getting talent, right? And Travis Hunter is definitely talent. No question there. But they went out and spent all this money on Paulson Adebo. Like, they don't need to walk away with Travis Hunter just because he's on the board. The same could be said about Malachi Starks at safety. He's a super talented safety, definitely like top 15 talent. If they were to like trade down, whatever, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, why do they need to walk away with Travis Hunter, but like no one's discussing Malachi Starks in a trade down scenario? And people are talking about trade downs.
Let's talk real quick about Travis Hunter. So he is going to, I know he's chirped about he wants to play both sides of the ball or else he's not playing football anymore, which is nonsense.
That's not going to happen. He's going to play.
Right. So do you see that mix as like he's a primarily corner who's going to get an occasional snap at wide receiver, or is he going to be thought of as like a third receiver for somebody or even higher and playing both? Or where do you ultimately see his mix of playing in year one and looking down the road?
In year one, I'm going to say a gimmick player on offense. And the reason I say that is because I think he's going to be he's the best wide receiver in this class, but this is one of the worst wide receiver classes I've ever seen in terms of top end talent. So to say that's not saying much is a little insane, but it's not saying that he's an excellent, great receiver that is a number one guy right off the bat.
That tells you about the class because he may be the top receiver who spends only a percentage amount of his time during the week preparing to be a wide receiver, much less, his snaps are probably not the best on tape because he's expending so much energy on the other side of the ball too and never resting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when you get to the NFL, like I hate to be this, like, I don't know if it's diminishing, but like, I'm sorry, it's not the Pac-12 playing corner in the NFL.
You have to rely on more than just your God-given talent.
And I'm not saying that he does, but the step up in competition is massive.
Everybody. I mean, everybody. I mean, nobody can just go out there and just, in college you get guys who are hurt and they're like, they didn't practice during the week, but they're just going to play on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
And they still have 10 catches for 120 yards. They still threw for 19 for 27 for 320. They still had, 2 picks. You can get away with that in college. You cannot in the NFL. It relies as much on repetition, muscle memory, practice, strength, all that as much as God-given ability. And that kind of, I can play both ways and kind of, split my time prepping. That's not going to work.
Yeah, and like I said, he's definitely talented, and I think that he will get a smattering, like a section of the playbook that either highlights his ability or highlights his presence on the field to
And I'm not
cause
against that.
havoc. No, 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 not at all. But that's
Yeah.
where I see him year one. Going forward, can he do more than that? I think so. I think that he's a good character kid. I think he's a hardworking kid. Um, from what little I know of him and how much I'll ever know about him personally, but he seems like a very hardworking guy, who wants to be a master of his craft. He doesn't want to just go out there and collect a paycheck. So if he's going to be playing wide receiver, he doesn't want to look like a schlub. So I think over time he'll probably get more and more. It's going to change with coaches. You know what I mean? If Brian Dable gets fired and a new coach comes in, who the hell knows?
Sure.
But to my point, why I don't know. I don't see. Do you agree that like the safety is also the same amount of need? If we're just talking about need, you have a brand new free agent in Javon Holland back there, and you have a brand new draft pick in Tyler Nubin back there. Going to corner, you have a brand new free agent signing with Paulson Adebo and a relatively brand new corner in Deontay Banks over there. It's the same level of need to me.
Here's my take on this draft. I don't think Joe Shane, Brian Dable give one shit on what the fans think, what the media thinks. Quite honestly, I don't think what Mara thinks either. I don't think they are coaching and GMing for their jobs. I think they are kind of guys like that always have a mindset of I'm not going anywhere until one day I get the phone call where I'm fired.
Right.
So I don't think they're going to do anything that reeks of splash. I don't think they're going to reach for a quarterback. I don't think they're going to reach for the and they may not be a reach at three, but Travis Hunter is a splashy name, right? When they have like the Sports Center, the little ticker on the bottom, they're going to have his name. They'll say first pick in the draft was Cam Ward. Travis Hunter was drafted third.
Mm-hmm.
It's so I don't think so. The odds of going for the safety I think, are higher than people think because I don't think they're looking to. I need to save my job. I need to make an impact. I need to make a splash.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, I don't think that they're going to get Malachi Starks in any scenario that's not a trade down. But
Mm.
what I'm saying is that every time someone mentions a trade down, the first thing they say is like, get Mason Graham at defensive tackle. We've went over defensive tackle. I agree. Mason Graham would be a huge get at defensive tackle. But I don't like Mason Graham at defensive tackle more than I like Armand Membo at offensive tackle. I don't like him more than I like Malachi Starks at safety. I just that to
I,
me is fans filling holes, and even when we talk about Abdul Carter, which I know I'm flopping all over the place
I,
here,
I
fans are like
actually
trade Kayvon if you're going to get a Abdul Carter. Why?
why? Why would you do that? You're not solving anything that way. You're actually
No.
adding an unknown. Maybe Abdul Carter sucks. Maybe he's worse in the NFL. I see. To me, I think a trade down is actually looking more at what am I going to do as a result of trading down with the assets I get, as opposed to I'm trading down to get a particular player.
Right, and so I think that it all has to do with how much is offered and what's offered.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think they're looking like I want player X, but I know I can get him at 9. So I'm gonna engineer a trade so I can get down to 9, so get the guy. I think it's gonna be more of a, to your point, somebody offered me a boatload, or we want to put ourselves in a position to make as many deals as we can and have as many capital, and we're not happy with you know where we are at 3 versus who's on our board that high and stuff. And then I think from there it's like, okay, now let's look at the board and who can we get. So the the goal or the aim is not for a player in this scenario of what they do. And I really think this is in play. This whole, I really, I'm talking myself into the fact they're going to trade down from 3.
I don't know. Like, so you don't think it's going to happen, or you're trying to manifest it into
I,
happening?
I, I I'm I kind of like the idea of trading down because I still think there's so many needs and issues on this team that they need to fill more and more, even if it's for this year or for positioning themselves for next year, that I'm more liking the idea. Like, people are going to boo. If we trade down, people are going to be pissed off. And
Yes.
I am not at all going to be pissed off. I'm going to be like, okay, what did we get for it and how are we positioning ourselves for 2025 and next year? Um, but I'm getting more and more warming more and more to they're going to trade down a bit.
I would be pissed. I mean, for me, it's all about the return and what they end up doing with it. If they
Of
trade
course.
down, they walk away from Travis Hunter for, I know I just said like Travis Hunter. Why does everyone say we need him? But I mean, I would love to have Travis Hunter on this team. I'm not trying to mix my words here, but if they walk away from Travis Hunter and they do something stupid,
Oh, of
or
course. They do
you know what I
something
mean?
stupid, I'm going to be pissed at anything. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Um, let's talk about Abdul Carter.
Let's
I
talk
know,
about it.
I know this has nothing to do with our assessment of the edge. I mean, this would be just getting talent where talent, I would say, is needed. Brian Birds, Kayvon Thibodeau, and then a bunch of question marks. I definitely think a rotation is what makes edge guys better. You know what I mean? If they can be on there with fresh legs. Even if Abdul Carter is like a third down only specialist to start, I think it helps. Here's my thing. And again, this isn't a great argument to not take him. It's just that I know that he played at Penn State and wore the number, but he doesn't look like Micah Parsons to me. So I think a lot of people are just expecting Micah Parsons to come here with that pick. And, also only played 1 year at edge, right? But Micah Parsons kind of didn't play any years at edge. They just moved him wherever they wanted him. So again, I don't see a quote unquote generational talent. I see a very good high motor player, which the Giants could certainly use, but I don't know. I would
If
be
I'm
okay
dra-
with that pick, but if they walk away from Abdul Carter, like if it goes Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and then they trade down away from Abdul Carter, I'm not going to bitch about that.
I think I agree. I think it. I want a higher probability at 3. I'm getting a foundational franchise guy. It's of course there's always the potential for a bust or something, but I want a higher probability, and I'm not exactly sure he is it. The Micah Parsons thing. That's kind of like, hey, last night Kobe Bryant scored 81 points, something that's only happened twice in history. Will he do it again tomorrow? Like, no, he's not going to do it. I'll bet the mortgage he won't do it again tomorrow, but because it just happened. And that's, all of a sudden, Micah Parsons is a generational. He's not just a franchise guy. He's a generational talent. And just because they went to the same school, and that means you think that's lightning in a bottle, and it's going to happen twice for the same position, the
in
same school, in
like
the
three
same
years.
in 3 years. I mean, come on. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the expectation. Now, if you just want him for the player, and they certainly could use a rotational guy there that's a legitimate starter, and I think he could be a legitimate starter, then it's a perfectly fine pick. And I'm not going to be bitching if they get a Abdul Carter either. I'm just not saying, like, that's not my ideal scenario.
what makes you bitch in this draft then?
Taking Shadur Sanders at 3.
Thank you. Me too.
And again, I'm not opposed to Shadur Sanders on this team. I don't have him as I have him as quarterback 2, but the gap between 2, 3, and 4 for me is really tight between him, Dart, and McCord, and they're
I
all for different reasons.
I am going to. This is a non-biased opinion. I'm nothing to do with the fact he's Dion's kid. Nothing to do with Colorado. Nothing to do with the hype. Nothing to do with all the nonsense. I exactly agree with you that if you're picking him at 3, that's the signal that, well, maybe we are kind of panicking and we have to check the box that we got a quarterback. Well, we got him, and then you're kind of it's like kind of setting up the runway for buying time for this administration, because he's not going to play this year, and then you're giving an out, for any arguments if this team is poorly, like, well, we drafted our quarterback, he hasn't played yet, we need time to develop him and everything. And I think if they draft him, it's kind of like they're throwing themselves a lifeline and not in the best long-term interest of the team. Now, if they somehow, in part of this trade down, mechanisms and everything, end up at 11 and they draft him, well, that's a different story. But
Well,
at
you're also
3,
getting other assets in addition to him.
of course. But at 3, to me, that would reek of not just a reach, but of desperation, and that would make me upset.
I'll tell you what would make me more upset, and this one I really don't get.
Hmm?
Getting Jalen Milrow
At 3,
at all. I'm so like. I know that he's really fast and I know he's got a big arm, but name one other thing that he does well. He doesn't hit things in time. He only throws at one speed, and it's 100 miles an hour. He doesn't really read the field well. I have watched Giants fans lose their minds for Daniel Jones doing all of the same things for years.
Yep.
I do not understand this idea that we're just going to get another version of him. Yeah, he's faster. Yeah, his arm's a little bit bigger. He's far less accurate. He's
He
far
seems a lot less unpolished than Daniel
Oh my
Jones.
God, Daniel Jones was super mechanically polished. He has his flaws. I'm not sitting here trying to fillet Daniel Jones in any of this. I'm just saying, if we're going to compare the two, the things that Jalen Milroe does best, Daniel Jones could already do, and that's throw the ball far and run really fast and be a legitimate running threat. Jalen Milroe is both of those things. Can he throw the ball a little farther? Yes. Is he a little faster? Yes. That's it. He does everything else he does is worse than Daniel Jones. I don't understand this idea that the Giants are going to take him and turn him into something. I think it's bullshit. I think the media heads that compare him to Lamar Jackson are being super lazy, just so fucking
what
lazy.
Universe are they on?
I don't know. Lamar Jackson was actually a quarterback.
Yeah, he was a freak of nature, and he was a quarterback. I mean, I actually saw Lamar Jackson play in college. I saw him play when they were at NC State on a Thursday night, and you could see this guy. Like, not only was he just the best athlete on the field, but you saw a quarterback. You saw him, going through progressions. You saw arm strength. You saw accuracy. You saw a guy that's like, he may not be number one, but someone's going to take him, and he's going to, transform their team. So I tell you something. I'm gonna take what you just said and expand it on even more things that would make me kind of annoyed. I don't want any quarterback if they're drafting after like the second round,
Oh
because
yeah.
I don't want another, well, let's groom him for 2 or 3 years. That to me is a waste of time. I think if you're going quarterback, you better be damn well sure that's your guy, and he's going to be the heir apparent in 2026. And if you draft some guy in the fifth round, like, I don't know, who are the guys we've been drafting in the last 15, 20 years? The Kyle Lalettas of the world.
Oh yeah.
Or the guy from Syracuse, or any one of those type of guys where it's like, all right, we drafted him, and maybe he'll be a backup. Or don't waste the pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what you already have in Tommy DeVito. Like, Tommy DeVito is, as much as it's easy to clown on him, and we should, not a legitimate quarterback, not a legitimate starting quarterback, infinitely better than Kyle Lauletta and Ryan Nassib. And I don't care what anybody says. It's not even close how much better he is than them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, that's a luxury item is drafting someone in the fifth round and investing years that, well, maybe it'll be something.
That's what you do when you have your established veteran and you have your backup. And that's a guy you hope can become a that's just not where they're at right now.
And that's what the Giants were for those 15 years when they had Eli Manning.
Correct.
And, yeah. So I don't want to see it. I don't want to see, that to me is kind of like you're trying to eat your cake and have it both ways or whatever. That was a yeah.
There you go.
Good one. But yeah, exactly. I don't want to waste a pick on that.
Yeah, I agree. To me, I don't want to say Jalen Milroe is undraftable. I just think that for the Giants, he should be completely not considered. You know what I mean? Like, there are situations where Jalen Milroe can be groomed in the right franchise that are at the right time of their, history to do that.
And a right time of fandom and mediadom's patience.
Well, here's the other thing. You are betting on completely changing up. Like, this is a full project. This isn't he needs to work on some things. It is a full project. If this were a car, it wouldn't be running when you got it, okay? That's how much work needs to be done on this fucking thing. You have a coach now that may not be here next year. Why would you take on a project like that? Now, if you have Kyle McCord, Shadur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, all of those guys, I've already said I don't think are good enough to start year one. Cam Ward being the closest, whatever, those are minor projects. There is some fixing up, some tuning up you need to do. Maybe you need some new tires on him.
I'll take it a step further. If this regime is here in 2026 and they draft him like in the third round or fourth round, that means they're not drafting one next year. Let's say if the wheels fall off and Russell Wilson gets hurt in week 2 and you know, Jameis is Jameis, and then he gets hurt, and we're back in the Tommy DeVito show, or Milrow is playing who's not ready, and we're in that position to draft a quarterback next year, if it's a deeper draft and everything. But they have Milrow. They're the likelihood of them drafting another one is probably not happening. So I don't see it. If you're going for a quarterback, he better be your guy, or
Yeah,
just don't waste anybody's time.
I completely agree. Um, well, I was just gonna ask you something. I was just waiting for you to finish, and now I lost it. Um, damn. Well, I don't know. What else don't you want to see happen? Is there anything in particular that's being? Oh, that's what I was gonna say. The Jalen Milrow stuff. Like, there is plenty of people saying like people are gonna have to trade him to the first to get him. In which case, bye. I don't need that. I don't
Right.
think any team needs that. Again, to reiterate, this is not Lamar Jackson. It's just somebody that's also fast and plays quarterback. That's it. No other comparison really there.
The other thing I would not like to do, I would not trade up to get Cam Ward. I would, because the only way you're going to get him is you're going to have to give up the farm,
Okay.
and we are in no position to do that. So even if they are in love with him, even if they whack off to him every night, we're not in a position. A, I don't think he's good enough to be in the nightly whackable category, and B, if you really want to buy that Penthouse magazine, you're giving up way, way, way too much for not a sure thing.
That's true love, isn't it?
That's what they say.
Um, in which case, I fell in love at like what 13, 12.
That will be on Just Giants After Dark,
Yeah.
for Patreon viewers only.
Uh, Nightcast. I Here's something I would like to see: a slot receiver. I know we discussed this already. Kyle Williams from Washington State is
Okay.
just so fucking fast, and the idea of him just like running a slant with four wide receivers with like Neighbors, Slayton, which is already that's plenty of speed right there. Wandale and him, like I don't know, man.
Did he play with Cam Ward in 2024
I
or
don't
2023 rather?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because I'm interested to see that tape with a
But I
quarterback
mean, I
with.
would just say like, and this is not how I recommend you look at prospects, by the way, but for you to just for the illustration of what I'm saying and what but the potential is, just look up his highlights and just see what like the things that he's capable of. I'm not saying draft him super high. I'm just saying it would be awesome if he were on the team. That's it. I think that that's the right way to handle the wide receiver room this year. I think that they've got the outside pretty locked up for now. Any other outside guys that they need, I think they should be getting a veteran on the cheap. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Someone that knows the game, that is going to be in the right place at the right time, a strong veteran leader presence, and then he goes in there and plays when Darius Slayton has a hamstring injury or something. And that's fine. Plus, you have Jalen Hyatt, which you've already got him. He's already being paid. Might as well see where he's at this summer.
Mhm.
So,
There's no reason. There's no reason to cut him. But also
but I don't
no
see
reason.
anything behind Wandale. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
no slot guy there.
Yep.
Um, any other things I don't want to see? Is there anybody that I don't like that everybody else likes? How would you? What about getting an offensive lineman? There's a lot of like the Giants brought Donovan Jackson in for a
Well,
top 30 visit. He was a great left guard for Ohio State that had to play left tackle for the entire playoff run.
what is your take on Will Campbell?
I really like Will Campbell. I think he's the second best tackle in this class. It's really close between him and Membo. The stance is really hard to ignore. He's just basically standing up at the line of scrimmage.
Hmm.
But I mean, he's excellent. He's a day one starter, I think, in the NFL.
I think I've landed on that's who I'd want to draft first.
Okay,
I
so
think
you want to
I
trade down and get Will Campbell?
yes, if it's down a spot to get him, I would go get him. I think we got to get this offensive line figured out, so especially with tackle. And I think that's a guy who could start on day one. It makes all your other, everybody else becomes uh, bench and backup. I think, we got to build this team inside out and closest to the ball as possible. And we got to get, before, we're not most likely not going to have our quarterback of the future this year. So let's grease the skids for when that guy shows up next year, having an offensive line that's not going to kill him. So he can start on day one and have, and also make our running game better and all that. So you don't often get an opportunity to get franchise tackles, and this is an opportunity to do it. And I think this is what you do. That's my
Yeah,
pick.
yeah, and I mean, I would be perfectly happy with that. Personally, I have Armand Membo above him, but
I'd be fine with that too.
yeah, I totally, the methodology is correct, and we're looking at it right now. Andrew Thomas is definitely the guy they threw the money at. I like Andrew Thomas a lot. Jermaine Illuminator is definitely a guy that has been very good at right tackle. He's not going to take a hometown discount to stay here, and he's done after this year. And everything behind them, James Hudson and Stone Forsythe, are not real answers,
Nope.
right?
Nope.
They're
Nope.
perfectly good depth pieces, but they're not answers to anything. So it's
Correct.
a huge question mark at right tackle. I'm done with the Evan Neal experiment at right tackle. I don't know about you.
I think everybody's done with it. I think even the coaching staff is done with it.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Well, I hope so.
let's see if we can set. Well, if they draft, obviously that's the signal they're having that
Yeah,
the
that's a good
experiment at
point.
right tackle's over. And you take a shot. It's a sunk cost already at right guard. You see if it works out. If it doesn't, then he goes off and he goes somewhere else and becomes good. Who knows? But it won't be here.
Yeah. Um, I don't know about where. I feel like I've been screaming about guard for forever, and like Donovan Jackson, I think answers a lot of questions for them. Being a left guard, I talked about this with Bobby on Giants Nation show. If that's the pick, do you play him at right guard and leave John Runyon alone, or do you just put him at left guard and tell John Runyon, I know you like left guard better than right guard, but kick rocks, and then tell Greg Van Roten to kick rocks, and he's going to have to be depth? I don't know if I even give a shit, whichever one that is.
Well, I kind of feel like both of those guys are professionals and veterans at this point.
True.
And I think they'd be more receptive to doing that than someone who's still looking to get a payday or thinks their payday is coming.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to have that much of a kick rock situation with either of those guys.
That's fair. Yeah. But I'll never feel comfortable without a tackle. So it's just like, if that's the thing, like, there are definitely right tackle ideas that I think you can get in the third round. And that sounds like third round, but like, seriously, like Anthony Belton from NC State, I don't think is going to be a day one pick.
Mm-hmm.
And the Giants can use one of their 2 third rounds possibly on somebody like him to, and again, he doesn't have to be the right tackle this year. I understand the hatred for Joe Shane, especially his draft history, but he has set himself up where they do not need to fill a hole this year. There are no holes that need to be filled in the draft. There is merely looking to the future and acquiring talent, which is how it should be. Now, does he do that? That's going to be on him.
There are no short-term holes that need to be filled.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
but there's always long-term holes that need to be filled.
We're ready to go into 2025. We think with capable bodies everywhere. Great ones are a different story, but capable, I think we're okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Here's one other thing. Let's just say I don't expect this, but like taking a tight end with a premium pick to fill that room. I know you've been more on the they need to do something about tight end bandwagon than I am, but I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm not saying Tyler Warren in the first round if they trade down. I think that would be silly, but I don't know if maybe Colson Loveland is around at 34.
I think if their guy is around and he drops, they're going to jump on him and surprise people. But
yeah.
I don't think they're reaching for anybody, but I think it's a product of how the rest of the board goes. And if the guy they love falls down, they may jump him over other people.
Okay. Does that cover everything? What do we think is going to happen?
What do you think? Yeah, look into your grumpy balls and tell me what you think they're going to do.
I think at number 3, it's going to be straight up and simple. I don't think they're going to trade down. I think it's just going to be Abdul Carter.
I think they're going to trade down.
You think they're going to?
I think they are.
So here's the thing. With a draft class like this, where there is so much uncertainty on the quarterbacks, and the top end talent, like the top 10, there's 10 guys that belong in the top 10. But then like the middle portion, like 11 through like 20, is really a bunch of guys that belong 20 through like 30. You know what I mean? Um, when that happens, there's usually a lot of trading that happens because everyone is going to have a different value for the people that are remaining on the board, and the trade price is going to hit the floor. It's going to drop because people are going to, yeah.
Did I read this is the first draft since '67 when there hasn't been a trade yet in the first round? Is that true?
What? I mean,
So far there hasn't been a trade in the first round yet.
oh, well, I mean, at this point, it's the first one to make it this close to draft day without a trade.
I believe so. Yeah.
I did not see that. No, but I mean, I don't know if that's really a stat because there'll probably be a trade on day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speculation that there's going to be a ton of trades on day one.
I think it's possible. I think it's very possible.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, here's the thing, though. There's always that one franchise who falls in love with someone just because they're someone.
Listen,
somebody is going to be in love with Shedeur Sanders.
Dude, 100%. Because think about what San Francisco did to get Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
How much did they trade? And the only reason they don't get shit for that is because they already had such a good team and because they just accidentally won the lottery with Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
It just gets, I don't want to say whitewashed from history, but people just don't talk about it. That was one of the worst draft day moves in recent history because they gave up a lot to get him.
Sure. But you're right. I mean, and that's not part of the playbook. The GM playbook is, okay, make up for it by having Mr. Irrelevant, expect him to be a starter, much less a Pro Bowler, much less a guy who might make $300 million. That just doesn't happen. So that you're right. It was just, they fell ass backwards in the luck.
Yeah. And because of that, they've just remained good. And so no one cares about your draft blunders when you're good.
Sure. Right. It doesn't
I mean, even the Patriots, Bill Belichick's draft history is not that good. Yeah, it's really not good.
Just listen to Bill Simmons' podcast for the last 15 years and hear him bitching about the draft.
I mean, it's legitimate. He's bad at it. He's absolutely bad at it.
Which makes you wonder why would anybody think he's going to be successful at North Carolina when the guy?
Well, because they have a GM.
Right, but it's all recruiting is primarily done by your coach.
Isn't that? Would you say is that going to change now with the GM position opening up in college sports, or you think that's just for transfer portal?
I think that's through the administrative piece of he's the one who may identify talent, but who sells it is the coach.
Well, I think what Bill Belichick was good at was developing talent. Like he getting lacrosse players to be stars on a football team is legitimate talent right there.
Sure.
I think he'll be fine at UNC because everyone that you get at college is an 18-year-old ball of clay. You know what I mean?
You got to get the talent.
Well, of course, but
he also has the disadvantage. He has no relationships with anybody. He has no relationships with the camps. No relationship with high schools. No relationship with anything. He's really coming in. A guy like Kirby Smart at Georgia, he was able to be successful right away because he was with Bama for years as defensive coordinator, and he built up all these recruiting ties, relationships. So he started on day one. Hey, it's Kirby. I'm now the coach. Okay, you're the four best guys you need to go take a look at.
Yeah, I think Belichick will be fine though because his name does a lot of help for him. If guys want to transition to the NFL, he's a guy who is going to develop the talent for you, tell you what you need to do, and has the relationships upwards, not downwards. So I do think that he has a completely different advantage where his name alone is like, wouldn't I rather play with this guy where, he's going to put the good word in for me if I do well with them,
Here's one thing, my counter to that, and this is my argument about the Tim Tebow argument. When was the last time, how long ago has it been since the Patriots won a Super Bowl? 10 years?
I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
Let's say 10 years. You're a high school sophomore.
Oh, does anyone know who Bill Belichick is? The answer to that is yes.
Does anybody care?
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, he was a coach, but he's not really relevant to me anymore.
Yes, I'm going to say yes to that. Bill Belichick is a benchmark NFL name. That is not, Tom Coughlin. That is not even Pete Carroll. You know what I mean? Like,
right. But he's also, for a 16-year-old kid, a 15-year-old kid, someone you only saw through, you didn't see happen in real
his
time.
name is synonymous with winning Super Bowls. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, I know they weren't alive for it. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
Right. It's still synonymous with Super Bowls, but it doesn't resonate as like in the moment. Like Babe Ruth will always resonate as the greatest home run hitter and everything, but like if you didn't see him play, he's someone that you watched film on and heard about.
Yeah, but it's different because Babe Ruth isn't calling you to go under his tutelage.
Mm,
You know what I mean? I think I agree. He'll have trouble at first, but I think if he stays there for long enough, he'll settle in just fine. I think that he'll be able to pull transfers too. So, in any case, don't really care about college sports. Not the point we're here right now. Anything else that you expect the Giants to do in this draft that you think is going to happen?
Expect. Oh, I honestly don't expect. I have low expectations of what they're going. I'm really kind of. Like I said, I think they're going to trade down. So as soon as you start trading down, then my expectations go out the window because it opens up so many different possibilities.
Sure.
It's like, so if it was like a cut and dry, at number 3 and we had a different draft, like George Sanders was the clear number 3, I'd be like, I'm expecting this full thing. I think as soon as you start playing with your status, you're kind of relying on everything else that's happening. So I don't have any expectations right now. I think at the end of the day, they are going to get somebody who's going to be a day one starter. I don't think they're going to completely punt on this draft by I'm trading down to position myself for next year or the year after. I think they're still going to come out of this with a starter on day one for sure.
Here's my prediction. You think they're going to trade down from 3? Yes. I think they're going to trade up from 34. And for all the reasons I said, because the price is going to be lower. So why would you trade down when the price is lower than trade up when the price is lower? They have.
Well, I'm just thinking at 3. Like I said before.
No, I understand. I
think
not.
Somebody's going to want the second quarterback.
100%. Yeah. I see what you're saying, but I'm just thinking that if it's going to cost less in general to trade up in this draft, then rather than trade down from a premium spot where there are, like I said, the top 10 belongs in the top 10. Maybe not even. Maybe like 8. Maybe like the top 8 belongs.
They belong
up there.
In this top 8.
Correct. But everybody after that, it's like that's in most drafts. This is like a 22 overall pick, and we're talking about him at 11. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think they'll move up from 34, and I think that so this is the first time I'm going to reveal this on this show. For whatever reason, it's not scientific, it's not football, it's nothing to do with anything, it's not even analysis. In my gut, going back to February, I think, I told you this, and I told Snacks this. This is the only 2 people I told. In my gut, I felt like they were going to obtain Russell Wilson and draft Jackson Dart. And that was before I even really did the dive on Jackson Dart. And one of those 2 things has already happened.
So in your little yellow piece of paper, it says Vontae Mack all the way.
That's 100%. There's a text. I have text to you and Snacks that I'd have to dig up because I'd be scrolling back several months at this point. But I have that. I have those receipts somewhere because I definitely wrote it down when I sent it to you guys.
You were hot to trot on Russell Wilson last year too, so yeah.
No, and again, it's not hot to try. It just makes sense where he is in his career.
You brought it up. You definitely had mentioned as a possibility. So yeah, all right. Again though, but you're thinking they may go after Jackson Dart, but does he give you? Do you categorize him like I do as someone like we're kind of wasting our time with him, or you think he has a legitimate shot to be?
I think he has a legitimate shot if he has things to clean up. I think that Brian Daboll can clean up the things that he needs to clean up. You know what I mean? Like so this isn't Jalen.
To be the future.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. With no impetus to start right away. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
Yes. But this isn't Jalen Milroe where there's an engine and parts and then maybe there's half a chassis. This is a car that it's got 4 donuts on it or something. So it'll drive, but it won't get very far. But Just got to fix those donuts.
So let's talk about the rest of the week. Where are you going to be? And I'll
I
tell you
am
where
gonna
I'm going
be,
to be.
yeah, I'm gonna be live on in this exact chair in this exact room on the Giants Nation show with Bobby Skinner for Wednesday. So for those of you listening, that is going to be today for you guys live from 3:45 to 4:45 doing mock draft. It's the quote unquote draft day podcast, but it's not happening on draft day. And we're going to do a mock draft stuff and kind of work our way through that stuff. And then rounds 1 through 7 going to be live on Giants Nation show with Bobby and Danny King. And doing all that stuff. And then after that, I don't know if there's specified times that we're recording, but just some draft recap stuff with Bobby on Giants Nation show. So he just built that entire channel from the ground up. So if you haven't already followed, but for some reason you're listening at minute 60 of this show, you should follow that show.
If there's only 3 shows you should be following, it should be our show first, Giants Nation, and
Talking Giants.
And Talking Giants, please.
Yes.
Watch all 3. We just want to give all the information out. I will be, however, because I'm a friggin' maniac, I will be Thursday flying down to Tampa for Game 3 of Lightning Panthers, then going to Miami for Game 4. But I will be, obviously, I might be chiming in on Giants Nation. You never know. Over the weekend, and then we'll do our next episode probably. You want to do a Sunday nighter, or you want to do a Monday one? I don't know what your schedule is. You're going to be, if you're going to have a voice box after the next 3 days.
Let's aim for Monday. Sunday, I've got a lot of shit going on.
Okay, I think we have Nick's game. No, I think we're good.
I mean, I don't mind going super late to do a recap stuff. So it's not like it's going to be new information or whatever. So
yeah. But you will hear from us, by the latest Tuesday morning with our, our takes on the draft. But absolutely listen to Giants Nation with I'm just lucky to have my own personal Mel Kiper Jr. with me at all times. I'm glad more of the world is getting to hear him also. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot of fun. Yeah.
And if you want to bitch and moan about the Knicks with me and a lot of your favorite cartoon characters from all these sorted Giant shows, hit me up and I'll add you to our text group. It's been misery loves company the way the Knicks were last night. So, and if you give a shit about the Lightning at all, first of all, congrats and get in touch with me also.
So that's gonna do it. Tomorrow is the day. So I hope that you're all locked in, ready for an additional Giants player or 2. You never know. To join the team. That's when it's going to happen. And this whole weekend, we'll have a whole new bunch of people to be really excited about. Be sure to follow this show, follow Giants Nation show, follow Talking Giants. Until next time, go Giants.
Go Giants. Go Knicks. Go Lightning.